What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be going over the Stockholm Regional results from this past weekend. So Vancouver was a very interesting tour where we saw Lunala take first place honors, and now it almost did it again here in Stockholm. Second place is pretty good. That was used by Eric Rios. But ultimately, what took home first place was Michael Kelsch using Hard Trick Room with Calyrex Ice Rider. And we have all the teams here that we're going to go over, of course. But as always, we want to look deeper within the tour and tell an overall story as far as what actually transpired within the regional. And that means we have to look at usage data from both day 1 and day 2 for your non-restricteds and your restricteds. And then just look at the notable cores that is being used right now. And then, of course, look at some other niche Pokemon in terms of, what kind of roles did they have on specific teams. Because, again, all of this is going to be important as we move forward, as we head into Atlanta, Milwaukee, NAIC, of course. But, we still have a month left of this format, more or less, right? And it's just astounding the fact that we played this format for half a year and we're still now getting a little bit more of an updated meta, which is very, very interesting in itself. And really what it comes down to, guys, is time, right? Remember, the first go-around of regulationG, not many people liked it all that much. It was more or less the same kind of squads over and over and over again, right? And now people thought that would be the same thing in the second go-around for regulationG. But as time progressed and as time was given to people to explore certain ideas, now we're getting a little bit more interesting results, right? And that's pretty cool in all honesty, right? So it just goes to show you, if you want a little bit of variety in a format, you just need a little bit of time, which is all the more reason to keep trying new things, because you never know what the meta might have. And even though your idea may not be good today, it might be good next week, because the meta will change depending on not only the region that you play in, but also the timing of the team that you bring, okay? So yeah, let's go ahead and let's look at the usage data and let's see what exactly happened from day 1 and day 2. All right, so right here, this is day 1 data for Stockholm. And honestly, at this point, I say this all the time, but this is no surprise. The S tier Pokemon are still S tier, and the A tier Pokemon, or the high A tiers, are still gonna be high A tier. This hasn't really changed. Okay, you're still seeing Urshifu, Incineroar, and Rillaboom at 1, 2, and 3. Your Fire, Water, Grass core, of course. Then your Mushroom to round out your balanced core, especially with Incineroar, for that defensive backbone that a team needs to be able to, mitigate damage and make sure things are kept at bay with redirection support, fake out pressure, and Spore, right? And it gives you that Trick Room matchup, of course. And then, just Ogerpon, Heart Flame, and Raging Bolt. Just put out a good amount of offense while still offering some support tools like, like Follow Me, Electro Web, Volt Switch for that matter, or just one big giant nuke with Ivy Cudgel or Draco Meteor, right? Then down here, these are more or less like your checks to a lot of different things. So for example, your Chi-Yu will be good checks into something like a Calyrex Shadow Rider or even an Ice Rider too. Your Landorus is really strong into another Chi-Yu, or also pretty good into another Miraidon. Your Iron Hands, of course, is just a very, very good, strong Pokemon. Besides the Miraidon teams, you're starting to see this on the Tailwind teams to offer a little bit more balance. Great into Kyogre, great into Ice Rider, and overall, just a very good Pokemon to use in Trick Room. Very bulky, excellent stat distribution, of course. You know what Iron Hands can do right now. It's been a few years. Then you've got Tornadus for your hyper-offensive teams. And then the Ogerpon Cornerstone, along with the Heart Flame, is also very high in usage because Sturdy is busted, right? And then Fluttermane here, down here at 7th place, of course. Strong Fairy coverage for the Urshifu, Icy Wind, Thunder Wave speed control. You can outspeed another Shadow Rider, which is important, and slow it down. So this way your other mid-tier Pokemon can outspeed it. But all in all, you can see a lot more Fluttermanes on some of those Sun teams, whether it be Sunny Day Tornadus, or a lot of those Koraidon teams in general, where Fluttermane really, really excels. So this day 1, I'm not surprised, okay? But look at day 2. Holy smokes, there's some interesting guests to this party, right? And I'm looking specifically down here at the 11th and 12th spot. Hello Clefairy and hello Smeargle. Wow. Okay, we know what these guys can do. Okay, because again, they're very good support Pokemon. And for good reason, right? Clefairy has, Friend Guard, which is busted, okay? It's one of the best abilities in the game. You've got Follow Me support This thing is one of the best complements to a Calyrex Shadow Rider, okay? And then you get access to something like After You, which means in Trick Room, you get to outspeed another Ice Rider, and then your faster options get to go first because of After You. Then you have this demon, okay? Smeargle with, you know, Follow Me, Fake Out Pressure, Spore, Wide Guard support, Decorate on those Calyrex Ice Rider teams, given free +2 boost. And of course, you got to see the interaction in the finals with Michael Kelsch and Eric Rios. This thing survived a Rillaboom Grassy Glide, lived to tell the tale, and that was a big difference maker in this matchup. If you haven't watched the finals, make sure you go watch it. It was very, very astounding how that thing lived a Grassy Glide. But of course, sometimes a roll is what you need. And then look at this. How about Indeedee? You know, almost cracking the top 6. Now, what does the Indeedee do? Same thing like Clefairy, where you get redirection support. So all these guys get redirection support, right? Which is important because you got to mitigate some of the damage being splashed around by these uber restricteds. You get access to Trick Room, of course, but you get terrain control. And that's important in a format dominated by Rillaboom and a format dominated by Miraidon. You get to take that away and deny priority. Look at all these Pokemon with priority. Aqua Jet Urshifu, Fake Out from Rillaboom, Fake Out from Incineroar, Thunderclap from Raging Bolt over here, Fake Out from Iron Hands, okay? Prankster, Thunderous, of course. Some ideas there. So Indeedee gets to shut all of that down. Sometimes you'll see Ferrigraph in this place over here, but in this case, we're seeing Indeedee. And the main difference that it can do is, of course, besides the terrain control, it allows your other special attackers to click the Expanding Force button. Calyrex Shadow Rider gets to click Expanding Force. Lunala gets to click Expanding Force, okay? Hatterene gets to click Expanding Force, right? For some of you Topo fans out there that love to click Expanding Force with your Hatterene Pokemon, right? Yes, I know who you guys are. But ultimately, it's very... I would not have guessed that these three, at this point, where we've played this format for half a year, would crack the top 12. They're very good Pokemon. They're going to be in the top 20. I didn't think they would crack a top 12 result over here. But it just goes to show you, with enough meta progression and depending on the support tools that you want, you can get some high usage out of some of these Pokemon. But again, they're all support options, right? So, yeah. And now we'll see what kind of squads these guys are on. But you can probably guess, because the squads that they were on previously have not really changed. It's just that people are using them more. Okay, so that's it for the non-restricteds. Now let's look at the actual restricted legendaries. Okay, now for the restricteds here for day 1 here, no surprise with the top 3 again, right? Shadow Rider, Ice Rider, Miraidon, flip-flopping back and forth for most of regulationG, right? And then you'll always get the Zamazenta Pagos at 4 and number 5. However, look at the percentage of Zamazenta and look at the percentage of Pagos. Okay, Zamazenta is now down to single digits, 8.7%. And that's important because if this thing is down in usage, this is one of the restricted legendaries that can actually, or even just Pokemon in general, that can check the Terapagos, right? Because super effective fighting damage. So if this guy is down, then that means this guy, the turtle, can come out to play because there's less of him. Okay, so this predator-prey relationship is there. So now Terapagos teams are looking at a little bit more playing time, right? So whether it be the Balance Way with Heatran, all right, or even Screamtail, which we'll take a look at in a second. But those are two very common Pokemon that were on Terapagos teams that have been able to do well against a Zamazenta. That being said, Koraidon gets a little bit of a bump in usage. 7.6% is high for Koraidon, overtaking Kyogre for sure. But same reason, right? And again, if this guy is held low in usage, then this guy will also stay. This guy will rise a little bit more in usage. But that being said, hello Lunala entering the fray. This is the carryover from Vancouver, in all honesty, right? Because now that it has won, now people are exploring it more. They're doing a couple more ideas, and we'll look at Eric Rios' team because it was a different kind of set than what we saw from Belzad, right? So we'll take a look at that. But what was more interesting is the day 2, okay? So look at this. Look what happens in day 2. We have another unexpected guest here, and we have another guest dropping out, okay? And that is not a coincidence, okay? So now look at the top 3. Holy smokes. Now you've got Ice Rider and Shadow Rider still top 2, but now look at Miraidon's dropping usage, 10.2%, okay? Koraidon gets a little bit of a spike, But who dropped out? Where is the Shield Dog? Where is Zamazenta? Nowhere near to be found on this graphic. You went from, you know, one of the top restricteds that's not named these guys, okay, to all of a sudden not even on the graphic. So guess what? Now you're not even being played. So guess what happens to his usage, right? So now Terapagos goes from 10% to now 18%, right? So it has a trickle down effect. Less checks here, which means I get to come out and play more. I'm gonna get more usage. Hello, Terapagos teams, right? And then how about wait, this is like, you know, you have a little party and then, you know, you see like more or less the common guest, and then this random guy comes in and you're like, who invited you? Okay, we have Eternatus sneaking in here at 2%. Very, very interesting. We'll see, you know, what those squads look like, right? So very interesting there. But Lunala gets a little bit more of a bump now. Now you're up to 4% Lunala. Okay, there's more than one Lunala team that did relatively well. But yeah, it's just very interesting. The fact that Zamazenta dropped off completely off of this graphic. We have to look at why, but you can kind of see why also just looking at, you know, some of this stuff over here. Like Clefairy can redirect body press, okay? And that's important because, you know, if you can't hit the Pagos because there's a Clefairy or if there's an Amoonguss, then your Zamazenta teams are not going to go far because you can't get past their redirection. The same thing with these Indeedee teams, same idea. You know, you get to, you know, survive a lot of these Zamazenta hits, and then you could just get to KO it right back, right? So that's also very, very interesting. And I know there's no Screamtail on this graphic, but that is another Pokemon that can do well. And then even from like the day one users, you still have to deal with stuff like, you know, Urshifu, Landorus, Iron Hands can beat you, Chi-Yu can beat you, even Ogerpon, Heartflame, if it Terras can also do relatively well into Zamazenta. So lots of answers into Zamazenta right now. So I am a little bit shocked that it did drop off the graphic, but all in all, I think that may have to do a little bit more with variance, but it is very telling to see, okay? So anyway, now that we got a picture of the restricteds and the non-restricteds, let's actually look at the top 8 and see what people were using. All right, so now let's take a look at the top 8 here. And honestly, I think this is the most diverse top 8 that we've had in Scarlet and Violet. Now, what do I mean by that? Look at the number of restricteds that we have within the top 8. You have 2 CSRs, right? And that's the only repeat restricted that you see within the top 8. Then you have 1 Miraidon down here. Then you have Koraidon. Then you have 1 Kyogre, 1 Pagos, 1 Lunala, 1 CIR, right? 1 Calyrex, of course, in the winning. That is 7 different restricteds within the top 8. That is amazing, okay? Who said regulationG was the same teams over and over again? That is insane. And then look at the niche options that you're going to see over here, right? So let's just get on to it. Let's look at Michael's team, right? The winning squad here. And this is a very normal, believe it or not, Calyrex Ice Rider team to run right now. You have the Smeargle, you have the Indeedee, and then you have the Bolt Beam coverage, you know, with the Raging Bolt and the Calyrex Ice Rider, right? So the whole idea with Smeargle, of course, is you can actually underspeed your Calyrex Ice Rider under Trick Room, so this way you can decorate first and then go for the +2 Glacial Lances or the High Horsepower's Close Combat, right? So this almost looks like a rental that we put out in March, so if you want to try something similar, make sure you check out our rental for it. But honestly, again, it's very, very good. And then here's your secondary restricted. Torkoal with choice specs. So imagine leading Indeedee Calyrex. They drop the Indeedee. You could bring in the Torkoal for free. All right, start clicking Eruption plus Glacial Lances in Trick Room. All right, and things are just going to melt. Of course, be aware of Wide Guard at the end of the day, but still, tons of pressure. Then the Urshifu band over here with Iron Head tech. So, you know, in our rental, when we use the Urshifu here, it was a brave Urshifu with relatively slow speed and a ton of bulk. And I would imagine that's what Michael is going for here. Again, I don't know his EV spreads, but I would not be too surprised to see a brave natured Urshifu with more bulk, right? And then this is Terra Electric Raging Bolt with safety goggles. Get around the Amoonguss shenanigans and then just nuke something for free is going to be really, really cool. So very solid, very strong, hard Trick Room team right now. So if you're looking for something like that, you know, give Michael's variation a go. You can give ours a go. You know, we have some similar core pieces, okay? The interesting tech, of course, is the close combat over the high horsepower. This is really good. This is something that could potentially smash other Terapagoses for that matter. So if you want to go for something like that, you can, because again, now you have double close combats from both the Urshifu and the Calyrex Ice Rider, okay? Next over here, this is the Eric Rios team with Lunala. And this is a Calm Mind Lunala here. So this is another way to use Lunala right now. Remember the Meteor Beam stuff with Power Herb? Now you can also go for Teferi, Calm Mind, Moonblast Beam, right? And this is the one thing that Lunala could give as an advantage over something like CSR. Because Calyrex Shadow Rider only really has Draining Kiss. It's not the hardest hitting fairy move, but Lunala gets access to Moonblast, which is really, really nice. And then Teferi Moonblast is great because, again, you get to resist all the dark damage, you neutralize your ghost weakness, and Moonblast fairy coverage is really good right now. It's a lot. Imagine Koraidon teams, okay? The Roaring Moons that are running around, of course, and then, of course, the Urshifus at the end of the day, right? So I really like Lunala, and here's a free EV spread for you just in case you wanted to try a Calm Mind Lunala yourself. I did something like this in our Lunala team building video where I showcased 3 spreads here. This is one of them, right? This is Leftovers, Moonblast, Calm Mind. So the whole idea is that you're hitting the bump in special attack. You have a nice even number for both your special attack and your special defense for the Calm Mind boost. But the whole idea with 220 HP and 140 defense does 2 things. 1, it optimizes your HP recovery for Leftovers. And 2, this is just as much bulk, just enough bulk that you need to be able to survive an Urshifu Adamant 252 Wicked Blow here, right? So there's the calc. Okay, so if you want to use a spread like this, you can. 118 speed is also just enough speed to outspeed something like a Modest Pelipper. So if that means something to you, great. Because after this, the rest is just leftover Spidef. And then, +1 Calm Mind survives an Astral Barrage anyway, especially if it's Life Orb. So you can definitely just play towards that. I'd rather have more physical bulk if I'm already increasing my special defense like this, right? So, you can go for something like this. But if you just look at the rest of Eric's team, so look at Screamtail here. We've been mentioning this a little bit towards the beginning of the video. Disable and Encore is very devastating in this format, right? Because think about how many Pokemon are using Choice Specs and Choice Scarf, right? Imagine stuff like, Chi-Yu, Urshifu, and Miraidon, right? These Pokemon can only click 1 attack because they're going for choice items, right? But then you just click the stuff like, Disable and Encore, and now what do? Okay, they have to switch out. They can't really click a move anymore. And the best part is that Screamtail with Boost Energy is super fast and not Prankster. So you're not going to get stopped and shut down by stuff like, Fergraph or Psychic Terrain because, it's not a priority move, right? But you're still fast enough where you can go first and disable these key restricteds, right? Or even Encore them, right? So, and at the end of the day, you're also super bulky. So you're super fast, super bulky, okay? And you're non-Prankster. That is excellent, believe it or not, okay? You don't need this thing to deal damage, okay? You have enough damage on this team where you can kind of get by, and you have enough setup where the Lunala can just rely on the fake out pressure and the redirection to just kind of clean through with the Moonblast and the Moongeist Beam stuff, right? Because now, remember, you're getting special attack damage mitigation with Calm Mind. You invest physical EVs to take less physical damage, and you still add Incineroar onto the team where you're still reducing more physical damage. So Lunala becomes relatively hard to remove, okay? And things that want to click their dark moves and whatnot, or, ghost moves, you could just disable and Encore them, right? You could protect first and then just lock them in. And then all of a sudden Lunala just kind of chilling, right? So you can go with something like that. Tornadus Ability Shield is kind of funny too. Terra Dark, of course. And then just standard Bleak Wind Storm, Tailwind stuff here. Rain Dance, of course, is just another way to remove sun stuff against you, which is great. But all in all, this is a really cool way to build Tornadus. And by the way, even though the sun will activate, Screamtail's photosynthesis stuff, that's okay. Sometimes you still need to remove those Koraidon teams out of the sun. So this way the Flutter Mains and the Raging Bolts and the Chius are just not doing as much damage as they need to. Okay. So yeah, really cool Lunala build right now with the Calm Mind set. That's probably going to move forward here. And then here's another Screamtail team. Okay, yet again, here is Terapagos. Okay, and we've been mentioning this for a while. The Screamtail and the Heatran are very good answers into Koraidon Zamazenta stuff. Why? Because again, with Teferi Flash Fire, you can't click your fire move on Koraidon because you're going to soak it up. And you can't even click your fighting move because you're going to resist that because you are Teferi. And then you could just trap things with Magma Storm along with the Encore Disable stuff. And you want to switch out, but you can't because you are trapped by Magma Storm. So now you're just taking struggle damage over time, or you're just not able to click a very optimal move because you're locked. Okay, So then Terapagos is just free to click Calm Mind until the cows come home. Okay, you can click Substitute at the same time, right? And then you're just chilling behind these, your sub and just clicking Star because you are locked and you're trapped. So I like this a lot, and we're still going with the same formula: double, fake out, and redirection. The same thing that we had over here from Eric Rios' team. Then we get to something that's really, really creative. Okay, now we have Life Orb Koraidon back again. Remember, Wolf Glick with his Perish Trap team. So the whole idea with Koraidon with the Life Orb, yes, you are more susceptible to Intimidate, but you still kill Incineroars with -1 close combat because Life Orb is giving you a damage boost, whereas the Clear Amulet is not. And now you add Breaking Swipe here for, a Dragon Stab for physical damage reduction, which is kind of great, right? Because Fluttermane's defense is not all that great. Same thing with Chi over here. So you can mitigate that, and you still have special attack damage reduction because we have Walking Wake here with Snarl. Okay, so we have ways to mitigate damage, which is important. Okay, and again, we still have Heatran here with Magma Storm and substitute stuff, right? So this is really, really cool. Speed control is evident here with Fluttermane Icy Wind. We have Rage Powder and Spore on our Brute Bonnet, which also benefits in the sun. And, we love to see Brute Bonnet. This is on our Draft League, our Draft League roster. So we've gotten pretty good value out of Brute Bonnet within that. And then, of course, you get Chi-Yu here, just another strong attacker with the Fluttermane. You know what you're getting with the Flutterfish combination, right? So, yeah, this is pretty cool. I love the squad. I don't know if Jamie's gonna make this public. I'm sure at some point we can get access to it, but really, really cool Koraidon team. Shout out to Jamie. The pizza box story. So from what I understand, and he's been posting this on Twitter, he's had a bit of good luck from this pizza that he was having, right? And he kept the box around, and and it led him to get top 4. Eventually, had to dispose of it, but we don't doubt the abilities of the pizza ever again. So good job, Jamie. Then down here, this is the typical Kyogre team that you're seeing right now. The old Oliver Escalin build from the summer with Roaring Moon here. Origin Pulse Kyogre giving up the Water Spout. At this point, we can safely assume this is the best Kyogre team right now. I understand there's that hyper offensive variant with Tornadus and Iron Hands and whatnot, which is essentially our rental for month of March. But again, the same formula. Double fake out, redirection, give me a setup move. And that's the theme so far that we've been seeing within the top 8, right? So if you want a relatively strong team, get your restricted with a setup move, have double fake outs, have a redirector. There's your core 4, okay? Because right now it's a common formula that we've seen right now. Right here from Matty Morgan. So we get a little bit more hyper offense with Tornadus. But here you have 1 fake out mon, 1 redirector, and you still have setup here with Nasty Plot. So all in all, we're still seeing our restricteds going for these setup moves, and for good reason, right? And then you still have the physical damage pressure coming from Chien-Pao and Urshifu over here. So yeah, very standard way to play Calyrex Shadow Rider right now. Okay, here we go. This is probably the best Scarlet and Violet team right now, of course. The Arubega Miraidon, as people are calling it, of course. And no surprise to see it here within the top 8, giving up close combat for the taunt, and not the taunt, but still keeping Jet is what I meant. You ruin a lot of damage counts, you break Sash, and then you just nuke things, and yeah, things just melt, right? So I wonder if we'll see this movie for it. Oh yeah, of course, hello. So shout out to Federico, and then to round it out down here in the top 8, Louis Markle. Okay, another CSR build here. Double fake out and a redirector here, and give me a setup move. The theme is the same, okay? Mienshao is a cool option with Calyrex Shadow Rider because, again, the dark types like Incineroar want to put pressure into the Shadow Rider, but Mienshao does not care about that, okay? So you can just instantly OHKO those instants with close combat. But the main selling point also with Mienshao is you get Wide Guard, which is great into the mirror, and you also get access to Feint, so you can break Wide Guard against you, and you can break through Protect. So this way, they can't protect in front of your Astral, and then you just nuke them, they die, and the game is over, right? So I really like Mienshao along with Clefairy stuff. This is really, really nice. Friend Guard and Sing is very devastating. So imagine during the Trick Room matchup, you click Sing, the Calyrex Ice Rider falls to sleep, and all the Trick Room turns just get absolutely burned here. So I also like Chi-Yu paired with Calyrex Shadow Rider as well, just a little bit more damage. Because again, you don't have the Life Orb here, but you can kind of compensate a little bit by adding the Chi-Yu to something like this to drop special defenses. And you still have this classic Flutter Fish combination. Sometimes you don't see Fluttermane and Shadow Rider on the same team because you're doubling up on your ghost types, but it can still work if you have proper positioning. Okay, so that's it. That's our top 8, right? And we have one Zamazenta team just missing out in the top 8 at rank 9 here. So we'll take a look at some of the Zom teams because they did not do all that well in day 2. And we're going to find out why and see what squads were still okay. But all in all, the usage was definitely down this time around for the Shield Dog. Yeah, so Zamazenta actually really struggled here, right? Besides Tom's team here with the Pelipper stuff, which is barely missing out top 8, that was it. Everything else, the next highest team was 53rd from Zamazenta here. And, for good reason. So, like, look at this team here for a second. So, from Julio, you've got Chenpao, you've got Amoonguss, Zamazenta, decent starting core. Then you've got Fluttermane, Chiyu, and then Rillaboom here. What is this supposed to do against Teferi Heatran? Like, Heatran sits in front of Chiyu Fluttermane, right? Especially with your Teferi idea. And then you put pressure to the Zamazenta, okay? The Rillaboom doesn't want to stand in front of a Heatran either, okay? And neither does a Chenpao because, these are all things weak to fire. And yeah, like, what are you supposed to do with something like this? Okay, so this is where, like, the building's going to have to take a little bit of an adjustment, right? And honestly, like, even our rental sometimes can get a little tricky. So when we put out our rental for the month of March, right, this was our Zamazenta team right here. And Michael was able to take this team and win a tournament as of yesterday. And we're going to feature that team a little bit, right? But I felt like Zamazenta Pelipper stuff was strong, right? So you have the Amoonguss stuff, okay, with Chenpao and Zama, right? So that was okay. Then you have Pelipper for a little bit of weather control, another wide guard user. Then you add the Bolt Beam coverage from Raging Bolt. And then Landorus was key here just to kind of put pressure against something like a Heatran, right? So again, if you have the Heatran, you can just Earth Power it. If it goes Teferi, you nuke it with Sludge Bomb. So there's your answer right there. So in my opinion, I think these Zamazenta teams, they should have a Landorus, for example. Now, granted, Tom did not have that, but that's okay because at least he has a Pelipper to kind of put pressure on the Heatran and force it to go Teferi. And then from there, use stuff like Urshifu to remove it, okay? But yeah, this was not it from Zamazenta this time around. And again, getting locked out of your ability, or not your ability, your moves with Screamtail, and getting walled by things like Volcarona and Amoonguss, and even Clefairy to an extent, was not very good for it. So there must be some variance in some of the builds moving forward, but I think I still like Landorus with a Zamazenta. It just puts pressure into a lot of things that threaten or wallet. And then having Pelipper is also pretty important too. Just having that weather control along with that strong flying type that can at least, click Weather Ball or Hurricane in the rain. And then removing weaknesses to fire is also pretty important. So I like Pelipper Zamazenta teams. I know there's a few of them here, but that's not enough, okay? And I feel like if we had more, then maybe Zamazenta might have a different kind of result in this regional. But that's just my take on it. With the rest of the Ice Rider teams, you can see a very familiar team. They have the Smeargle, they have the Indeedee stuff. In fact, 3 of the top 4 Ice Rider teams are pretty much the same squad, right? So besides Michael's team, this one a little bit more balanced with the Instant Amoonguss Urshifu approach, along with the Choice Scarf Landorus and the Raging Bolt here. This honestly almost looks, well, no, not quite like our Zamazenta team, but yeah, again, Bolt Beam coverage is going to be good. Give me the defensive backbone with Instant and Amoonguss, slap on the Landorus here, and then you can just have Urshifu for a little bit more breaker damage. So I think that's also pretty good. Then you have a little bit more of a faster balance where you still have the Amoonguss, right? But then you add the Fluttermane Chiyu stuff, and then you get another redirector here out of the Ogerpon Cornerstone. So this is another way to build. And then the Urshifu this time around has the Scarf item, but it also has coaching. So this way you can coach the Ice Rider, for another boost. And then it could potentially steamroll, once it starts picking up KOs. Then down here, this one was an interesting one, right? Because you have the Indeedee, but you introduce the Iron Crown Size Spam idea, right? So it's like a little bit more of a faster mode in this case, right? You can lead Indeedee, Iron Crown, deal tons of damage early on with like expanding force shenanigans, and then clean things up where, you click Trick Room, bring in Torkoal/Calyrex, and then just melt things with stuff like Glacial Lance and Eruption stuff, right? So this is another take on the Size Spam hard Trick Room idea. Then you have the Hatterene variants. We saw this in Vancouver, right? You can still go Indeedee, Hatterene, Calyrex, Ursaluna, and then these two are your other last slots here. But again, same thing. And this was the Imprison idea. So this will let you beat the mirror. This was in the finals in Vancouver, right? So, you know, you can definitely use something like this. And I feel like this team, along with Michael's variant, are going to be competing for like the best Calyrex Trick Room variants right now. Hard Trick Room variants. So use either of those if that's something like you're more interested in. Then you have this one, a little bit, somewhat of an outlier. This is the Grimmsnarl Screens idea. So instead, we're forsaking our secondary redirector besides the Ogerpon for screen support. And you can do that too. So now you're just adding more bulk to the rest of your team. And then you're going to hide behind that bulk, set up your Trick Room, and then just go bonkers with Glacial Lands. Terra Normal's a pretty cool tech against the Shadow Rider team. Okay, so all in all, like you're seeing a lot of the Indeedee, Torkoal, Smeargle stuff, but the other ideas with the more balanced stuff is still like working as well. So for those Shadow Rider teams, we're going to preview them in a second. But again, you know, the formula is very straightforward here. So you want a bulky Clefairy for a redirector. Then you add at least 1 or 2 Fake Out Mons. So you could add stuff like, you know, Rillaboom, and you can add stuff like Incineroar. Okay, you can even add something like a Mienshao, depending on the circumstances. All right, so 2 of these 3. Okay, and then sometimes you'll even add something like a Tornadus for a little bit extra speed control. Right, now you don't necessarily need the Tornadus, but it does help in particular matchups, you know, especially against like the Tailwind mirrors. So you can definitely opt for that. But either way, if you're gonna have a setup move, give me the double Fake Out and a Redirector Mon to try and set that up here. So that's a common theme here. So if you look down at the rest of these, you know, just besides the 2 that were in top 8. So look at Justin's team right here. Okay, there's a setup Calyrex. Okay, here's 1 Fake Out Mon. Here's another Fake Out Mon. And here's a Redirector, right? And here is your quote-unquote Tornadus, giving the speed control, but in this case, it's a Whimsicott, still following the same theme here, right? So good job, Justin, sticking to the template. Alberto here, more or less the same idea as the above. You have Nasty Plot Giga Drain, which is interesting, right? Terra Grass Giga Drain. We might see more of that later. But once again, you've got Fake Out Mon here, Fake Out Mon here, Redirector here, Redirector here. So you have double Fake Out and double Redirection, technically, with this, and you still have the Tornadus giving you speed control. Okay, so and of course slap on an Urshifu, because why not? It's your last slot, might as well. And then even down here with Ruben, you don't need the Tornadus. What you're saying is, look, give me the full balance core, right? Give me Instant Rillaboom Ursh, slap on that Clefairy. This last slot, you know, I might as well just put on Raging Bolt, just because I need another special attacker here. I can put pressure against, you know, other Urshifus for that matter. Sure, why not? Okay. But you still have the occasional wheezing stuff, the Dondozo stuff down here. So for example, you have this one, you know, with the poison gas stuff. And then after everything has taken so much chip damage from the poison gas, then the Calyrex can just come in and start clicking Astro Barrage here, right? But this is Life Orb Chien-Pao, and then this is Encore Calyrex. So a fast, non-prankster Encore, yet again, another theme. Well, still the same thing that we've been talking about with Screamtail. Very good at shutting down your choice item Pokemon there, so I like that a lot. And then look at this one down here. Again, 6'4", but again, this is still the Dondozo stuff with the spikes, gas, wheezing. Okay, so you can definitely play that way if you really want to. And then Victor, more or less the same kind of team here. This is Ice Fang and Rest and Earthquake. This is kind of crazy when you look at this. You know, nice, interesting tech choices there. I respect it for sure, for sure. Okay, so, you know, you still have the occasional wheezing teams, right, with the Dondozo stuff, or you can play the balanced stuff with Clefairy, which may or may include Tailwind or not. But these are your best Calyrex Shadow Rider teams right now. And look, this is like all just regular balanced stuff. You know, some Clefairies, only one of them have, no, 2 of them have a Tailwind here, but still sticking with the same theme that we've been describing. So right now with Miraidon here is, are you our Bega Miraidon with the Whimsicott stuff? Or are you more defensive Miraidon with the Grimmsnarl as your partner instead? So 2 prankster Pokemon, either one can go with Miraidon. If you look at the results, that's exactly what you see. Look at all the Grimmsnarl down here. But the best ones have the Whimsicott here, right? So if you even just take a peek at this, yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I felt it would be. Again, but this one does not have the Focus Energy. Instead, it has a little bit more of a standard set here. Then you have Chris down here with the Volcarona Ditto stuff. This looks like Joe's team, more in all honesty, right? With the Volcarona set. Again, Volcarona, another mon that does well into Zamazenta. And then you have this one with Entei right here at 7-3. So Life Orb, Entei screens with Miraidon over here. So lots of damage. This is to put pressure into the Rillaboom. So if they want to lead that, you know, they're at its mercy with Sacred Fire. You can burn things. So this is a nice bring into that. And then after that, you know, you just, it's another Joe team over here. These are just all 5-3 Miraidons here. But it did not have a great result either, just like Zamazenta. There was some droppage there, and these were the only good ones here. But to me, I think that's just a little bit of variance in all honesty. I think Miraidon is still very, very strong. It just, you know, the region, you know, just based on what is running right now. But I do like the Grimmsnarl variant. I think the Grimmsnarl variant actually just won the global challenge. So, you know, give it a go and try it out yourself. But it is super bulky, and the Volcarona is in excellent win condition right now in Regulation G. So, you know, just to look at the Pagos teams one more time. Again, it just really starts here with the Heatran Screamtail stuff. Yes, you know what you're getting with the fake out bonds, but this is your answer to, you know, Fluttermane Chiyu. This is also able to sit in front of stuff like Koraidon and Zamazenta. And then from there, the Pagos can do well into everything else, right? So if you go into the Lab Mouse data, that's exactly what you see, right? So it's just either Instant and Heatran or just regular Heatran and then something else here, right? So look at all the Heatrans on the Pagos teams. There's 1, 2, this one didn't have it, 3, 4. All right, so 4 of the 5 Terapagos teams had a Heatran here, right? And they also had a Screamtail. And then you can also do something like this with Amoonguss and Volcarona. Still the same idea here. This is support Volcarona with Will-O-Wisp, Rage Powder support, but similar concept in all honesty. And then over here with the Amoonguss, and then you have something like here with the Fake Out Pressure from Iron Hands that can also do well into the Heatran per se. But this one, you have to be careful. You know, again, Heavy Slam is really good. That's why you have it, to snipe those fairy types like another Fluttermane or another Heatran for that matter, to deal super effective damage, force it to Terra. But this is another way around it. But this one has the Power Herb set. So it's not just all about the Calm Mind substitute set. So this one can utilize at least the Meteor Beam idea. So get a +1 advantage and then, you know, start doing, you know, big Terra Starstorm damage, right? So you can definitely do something like that. This one also utilizes some interesting ones like Comfey, Azumarill, and Iron Boulder. So this is Covert Cloak, right, with Calm Mind. So they don't like getting snarled, right? Because Chiyu could just snarl and Terapagos just cannot outpace it. That's another way to do it. Azumarill also can kind of sit in front of Koraidon, right? Because you resist the fire damage and you also can resist the fighting damage, right? And then you can just KO potentially, you know, with stuff like Play Rough and an Ice Spinner, blow up terrain. And, you know, you have huge power, so you're going to be dealing a lot of damage. The Comfey Terapagos stuff is something that we've seen before in early parts of Regulation G. Just keep the Pagos healthy, and, you know, you get your Terra Shift back, and then but you can just resist things at full hit HP again. You know, the Iron Boulder is like a quote-unquote Urshifu here with the Mighty Cleave stuff, of course. Very fast Pokemon, and Sacred Sword just does so much damage altogether. But again, Mighty Cleave, the rock damage is also really, really good. So nice creative squad here. I want to try and use this for a rental. I wonder if they will make it public. But anyway, so moral of the story here is that the Heatran stuff along with Screamtail is here to stay. And it looks like that's what it's going to transition into until the very end of Regulation G. So Pagos has found its key partners in combating the Zamazenta Koraidon stuff. The Kyogre teams right now, you can probably already see, look at all the Roaring Moon balance stuff here. These are all the Origin Pulse Kyogres. You get a couple of other hyper-offensive Kyogres like this with Tornadus and Landorus ideas. Of course, with Landorus being really strong in the rain because of Sandsear Storm, then you just add your Balance Cores with Instant and Urshifu over here, along with Rillaboom. And then you have stuff like Serena over here, which can deny priority. So stuff like Rillaboom Grassy Glide or Raging Bolt Thunderclap will not be able to hit the Kyogre because you have Queenly Majesty next to it. Then you add a Roaring Moon instead of a Tornadus for speed advantage here. And then at the same time, you get your Dark typing for the opposing Calyrex. So this is another way to also consider it. And of course, the Triple Axle will be able to beat out on those Rillabooms and those Raging Bolts because this is strong damage, especially with Terra Ice. Then you can even have this on the same time, you know, with the Chentpal there, blow up terrain or just, you know, pressure with that ice damage altogether. So you could just think of it like that, right? But other than that, you don't really see a whole lot of those other kinds of Kyogre teams. There's one down here, right? This looks like our rental, but it's also the inspired 6 from the name escapes you right now. Man, he uses rain a lot from Tub Nation. Remind me, who is it? My memory is fading me right now. Gavin Michaels, there we go. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I forgot his name. I'm so sorry, Gavin. All right, it's been a long day there. But anyway, but other than that, again, the Kyogre Roaring Moon Balance team has withstood the test of time and is still strong even right now. So besides Jamie Bolt's idea with the Koraidon stuff here, now this one from Roberto at 15th place, 9-3 record. This is the same variant, the Expanding Force stuff that we saw from Justin Knox. We featured this team on the channel, you know, about almost a month ago. So you can go ahead and check that out and take the rental there. Then down here at 7-3 from Steiner Nicholson, look at this one. This one is the Dondozo idea, right? The Droopy Tatsugiri, right? So, you know, body press stuff, nuking things, poison gas stuff, and then Koraidon kind of cleaning up here. And then you still get the Fluttermane Chiyu stuff over here. So this is one of the more out there Koraidon teams there, but then you have a little bit more standard stuff, you know, with the Entei, Umbreon stuff. Again, Umbreon, this is your Trick Room answer, more or less. You have Yawn Pressure along with Foul Play into both the Ice Rider and the Shadow Rider. Taunt is pretty cool. You get a lot of damage coming out from the Entei. And this is the Loaded Dice Koraidon with Scale Shot. So this is how you outpace other teams there. Instead of going for the Flame Charge there, you go for the Scale Shot. And you can break through Sash that way too. Then you have another variant right here with the Brute Bonnet. This one at 6-4, day 2. But this also involves the Ditto. So you can definitely look at something like this. Another Loaded Dice Koraidon. The Raging Bolt here has a Life Orb. But again, Culpa Photosynthesis Mods is what exactly you're looking for. And then you have of course, the Wolf Parish team down here with the Gothitelle stuff with Screamtail, right? And, you know, Screamtail is getting a lot of usage on a lot of different teams here. So we might have to push it up on our tier list that we put out about 2 weeks ago. So, but yeah, anyway, so some interesting Koraidon teams here. Give them a go if you haven't tried out Koraidon already. All right, let's see what was going on with that Eternatus team here, right? So 7-3 result there, day 2. Congratulations to Mr. Sander Tingleman. I see the Tinkaton there. Is that Assault Vest Tinkaton? Show it to me. Yes, it is. There it is. Right, so Gigaton Hammer, Play Rough, Faint, Fake Out. What was funny about Tinkaton lately, you know, Mr. Justin Tang has been slandering this thing on Twitter. I've seen some bot clips. This thing is not KOing anything, man. He went for Gigaton Hammer into a Screamtail. It survived. He tried to click Play Rough into a Koraidon, 4 times weakness, and it still doesn't kill, right? So it's kind of funny when you think about it. But Faint is really good with something like a Shadow Rider, because, again, you get to break the Wide Guard, you get to break to Protect. So I understand the idea with Tinkaton at the end of the day. I would have never thought I could pair this with Eternatus, but I understand just because you have Sludge Wave spam here, so you could just go with that. Obviously, you're not going to take any damage because, again, you have that Steel typing, but Sludge Wave, Eternatus with Choice Specs, this is going to do damage. And then you support this with something like Booster Energy, Icy Wind, Fluttermane. So, you know, you get the speed advantage against something like a Shadow Rider, and then you could just nuke it with something like Dynamax Cannon, this is Fire Blast. Oh my goodness. Wow. All right. Does that KO against an Ice Rider just straight up? I wonder. I have to look at the calc for that. But then you have like Ogre Pond stuff with Urshifu here. This is pretty understandable. Then Araquanid, which, by the way, remember, also gets Wide Guard support. Also pretty good in Trick Room. Very, very slow. So you get to outspeed a lot of different things in Trick Room. And then you have Sticky Web here, right? And if you don't remember what Sticky Web does, allow me to enlighten you. Okay, right here, if you just slap it on there. Sticky Web, okay? You lower the speed of grounded foes on switching, right? So think about this. You know, you go for the Icy Wind on a Fluttermane, right? And if they want to remove that debuff, potentially, right, they can just swap it out and bring something in. But then they're still susceptible to the -1 because of the Sticky Web there. So very interesting tech choice there to have from Mr. Sander Tingleman. Okay, shout outs to them for a pretty creative team, right? Great result there. I don't think anybody's prepared for this, okay? Or they did not actually prepare for this. This was not on the bingo card, but, you know, shout outs to Sander for making it work. All right, we'll kind of end it here with Lunala. So, of course, we saw what Eric Rios was bringing into this for second place here. But how about this build here from Michael? 8-3 result. It almost looks like the 6 that we have at the bottom of our video here. The only difference, of course, there's an Amoonguss there, whereas we had the Incineroar there. So it looks like we were on the right track for a while now. But basically, again, you know what you're doing with these 4, right? Tornadus, Urshifu, Indeedee, Lunala, right? You can go for the hyper offensive mode by just spamming Expanding Force, or you can go with the Tricker mode by, you know, just doing Lunala Indeedee stuff and bringing in the Ursaluna in the back end, right? And then this is the double Luna combination here. And then Substitute is very interesting tech choice there. Not that it's unheard of. Of course, this is really good when you have that last turn of Trick Room and they just want to protect. You can catch that and go for the sub, which is really nice. Or you can even sometimes use this on the first turn where they expect you to protect because your Flame Orb Guts is not locked and loaded yet, and then you can just go for the sub already, and then you can start dealing damage behind your Substitute, right? So Clismog Amoonguss, of course, for removing buffs, but this is a familiar Lunala build that has been done before. And then down here, look at Bazatzi, man. You know, just only 4-4 right here. George Lang was using this, right? And then we saw another user use it, Charlie, right? But not a whole lot of people using Lunala this time around there. So just 2 users, but again, not amazing results this time around. But, you know, that can also change very, very quickly when the regionals shift over back onto our side here. So we'll have to wait and see. But at the very least, the formula is relatively clear. You can do the Indeedee Tornadus Expanding Force stuff if you want, or just like the, you know, Lunala Expanding Force with some Tailwind user like a Roaring Moon. It has worked before, but now you have this newer build, like we said earlier with the Eric Rios idea, where you're just adding double Fake Out and a Screamtail here to neutralize, you know, the things that want to do super effective damage into Lunala, and then just set up these Calm Minds and start sweeping behind all of these boosts, right? And it gets hard to remove the Lunala because you have all this physical attack damage reduction, you have taunts, you have special attack damage reduction, the fake outs, the redirection, and it gets a little tricky to even get to the Lunala, right? So a lot of support from Eric's team over here to enable the Lunala here. You don't need the Expanding Force shenanigans, just nuke things with Moongeist Beam, and then just go from there, right? So we'll have to see if there'll be like other Lunala builds, but I think those 3 ideas that we showed are the best ideas for Lunala right now as of this moment. All right, so that's going to do it for now for Stockholm here. So if we learned anything, we learned this, right? If you have given time, okay, especially right now where we've played this format for half a year, and you have enough time to explore different ideas, you can make them work. And that's what we're seeing right now. Again, look at this top 8, 7 different restricted pairings. You know, it just becomes like matchup roulette a little bit. But, you know, these support options that are coming into play, like more Clefairy, more Screamtail usage, more Indeedee stuff onto these restricted pairings are excellent, right? Because they're enabling their restricted to do the job that you want it to do, right? Which is potentially to either set up and sweep, okay? And that's really what you want. Like, if you can set up and you can sweep, then it's going to be very hard to break you because you have all this fake out pressure and redirection support. And just to even get to your restricted becomes rather difficult, right? So we'll have to wait and see what happens moving forward. But, you know, these Zamazenta teams not having a good showing is a little bit surprising. We'll have to wait and see if that still holds true moving forward. Pagos had very, very high usage. Okay, much higher than normal. You know, and makes sense with Zam down, Pagos up. Okay, Koraidon teams, they're getting a little bit more creative now, especially with Jamie Boyd's build. It's not just all about Wolfie Con Perish, right? Or the more traditional way of building Koraidon. You might see the loaded dice stuff rise a little bit more. But, you know, the Shadow Rider teams, again, they either have like these balance ideas with a Tailwind user, or they don't need the Tailwind user at all. The Kyogre teams, they're still using the Origin Pulse Roaring Moon stuff. So, yeah, go figure. Another new Lunala build from Eric Rios, like we've just been talking about. That's now into play here. We'll have to see if there's more Lunala usage later on. But overall, I think we're in a pretty interesting spot where lots of different teams can be used. It just all depends on what are your supporting pieces, right? Because that's going to change how you play certain teams. Okay, but that's it. We'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good one.